You did the first ever Big U interview, I do believe. That was a really, really big deal when it first happened. I guess I'll just start with this question, is that when you did that interview with Big U, were you completely under the impression that he was done with his street life and that he had changed his life? Because I definitely thought that at a certain point, and then at a certain point started to hear things that kind of led me to believe, in particular Loose Cannon coming on here and talking about how he was basically the muscle for Big U, robbing weed dispensaries and strip clubs and whatnot, which ended up being in this indictment. What was your impression doing that Big U interview, and how does the RICO make you feel looking at it?
I mean, I was sad because you know, I had heard, you know, stories about Big U, but when I sat down with him, he seemed like a, you know, older guy. You know, he had kids. He was focusing on football, focusing on legitimate businesses, focusing on, you know, gang intervention, so forth. Since that time, me and him have, you know, maintained our relationship. We talk a few times a year. I've never seen anything remotely illegal based on anything I've ever seen or any conversations we've had on or off. I was shocked. I was not, like I was under the impression that anything was going on any level. And at the end of the day, he's still innocent until proven guilty. So, you know, remember he made that video before he turned himself in and basically said, a bunch of this internet now got me caught up in this RICO, and you know I got to turn myself in. It's fucked up. You know, Brick Baby has become a regular guest on my show. I was fucked up over that too. The other people in the indictment, I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's a federal RICO, right?
Yeah,
which is ugly. You know, this is just ugly. It's I don't, you know, TMZ interviewed me and yeah, man, I mean, I'm not, me and Big U are cool, and I've always maintained that. And you know, we've had multiple conversations about regular business shit. You know, if those conversations were recorded, no problem. Come out. You know what I'm saying? Because there's always been just regular, you know, straightforward conversations.
And that's how I feel when people are saying like, oh, Adam22 is cooperating, or Adam22 is probably working with the feds or whatever. It's like, I would gladly take every conversation that Brick Baby and I had ever had. Let's say he was wearing a wire, and that audio can be released to the world. And sure, there might be a little bit of stuff that would be a little shocking to people, but for the most part, this guy never told me where the bodies were hidden. If that, you know, to use a uncomfortable metaphor or anything, like most of these gangster dudes do not look at me or you as the shoulder to cry on about the worst things that they've ever done in their life, for the most part. That's just not really the kind of conversations that we're typically having with them, in particular, because if you tell Vlad that you killed somebody, Vlad's probably going to tell you that was a bad idea. If you tell Vlad you're thinking about killing somebody, he's probably going to say, like, listen, like, you sure you want to do that? It's probably not a good idea, etc. It's like, why would they've got plenty of homies that they could talk to this guy through with. And I just, like, you know, people think that we're maybe a little bit more involved in some of these dudes' lives than we actually are.
I've never been a gang member on any level. I never wanted to be a Blood or a Crip or anything else like that. Always had these relationships, business or just friendly. You know what I mean? Like, I used to always, you know, I like telling the story because me and Wack were beefing for like 10 years, right? Not beefing, acting like we're trying to get at each other, but I knew that me and Wack didn't like each other. We were both aware of this. I was aware that if I ran into him, that something might happen. So my security was always aware of this. You know what I'm saying?
Very menacing looking security, just so you guys know.
But saying that, for example, I never went to Big U and said, hey, I got this problem with a street guy. Can you handle it for me?
Right.
I'm like, I'll handle it myself, because I know that if I go to Big U, or if I go to a Brick Baby, or if I go to a Whack 100, or I go to anyone who has some sort of affiliation on some level, and now I want them to handle problems like that, then now that relationship changes.
You're wrapped up in some shit that is uncomfortable.
That now it's not a straightforward relationship. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I've always said, and I feel like that's where a lot of guys get in trouble, where they have that one friend and they have that friend handle a problem for them. They don't want to handle it themselves. And now you're somehow indebted to that guy. And you never know when they're going to pull out that card and say, okay, now I remember when I did that for you.
I had a little mini version of that where I got into a fight in probably 2017 or 2018, and there was an older gangster that was there, just happened to be around, and he said to me, like, right as the fight was getting broken up, he said, like, me to whoop this fool's ass? And I was like, do whatever. I might have just said like, sure. And he punched the fool in the face right there and then. Immediately, it became clear to me that this guy felt like there was now a debt that had to be repaid. Really? But he wasn't looking for like a financial thing or whatever. And we ended up making it cool by like me helping one of his artists out with doing a little bit of content or whatever like that. But I realized, and I'm glad that I got like a small taste of why that's a situation that you want to avoid. Because once you have that hanging over your head, I mean, these are guys who don't really play by the rules. And you've officially, you know, granted, could I have gone to the cops or the feds or whatever and explained that situation? And would they have basically probably done something about it? I mean, maybe. But I realized then and there that like, you have no reason as a non-gangster to be going to any kind of gangster, even if they just happen to be around and asking for favors, because you don't really want to owe favors to people who operate outside of the law.